You're only as old as you feel. Age is just a number. Young at heart. You can hear platitudes like these any day of the week in any English-speaking country. But how realistic are they? How have our attitudes to old age and death changed as global demographics have shifted? In 1900, only 1 in 100 people lived to over 65. By 1990, that figure had risen to 8%, and by 2020, a fifth of the world's population will exceed that age. In most developed nations, the average life expectancy has reached at least 75 for men and 5 or more years on top of that for women. Reductions in infant mortality have played a major role in this. But that's not the whole story. The number of centenarians has rocketed from 23,000 in 1950 to 15 times that number today, although global population has only increased by 250% in the same period. Of course, the development of effective vaccines and antibiotics, healthier diets and more exercise have played their part. In short, in the Western world, we might say that adverse living conditions no longer cut life short. Instead, we die of a running down of our biological mechanisms, or in other words, exhaustion of our body parts. Or so most people think. Others have suggested that we die at 70 years and 10 as a way of preventing overpopulation, that we are somehow genetically programmed for death. These views are challenged, though, by some genetic scientists who believe our systems are made for survival, not death. Other academics believe that our soma cells, those that decay and die, have not needed to adapt to longer life cycles because, until recently, there has always been something out there that was going to kill us long before our cells packed up. After all, animals in their natural habitat usually die young because they cannot find food or water, are eaten by predators, or killed in fights with others of their own species. It's one of the few advantages to zoos. Animals live longer there. So we might expect that our lifespans will increase as our soma cells adapt to less risky environments. This will not happen overnight, but may take a century or two to increase average human age. But what's the point of living even longer? After all, longer lifespan does not mean greater physical activity or better health, at least at the moment. For many of us, our last years are marked by more frequent and more serious illnesses. There seems little reason to live longer with Alzheimer's disease, chronic physical complaints that make life unpleasant, or even loneliness. However, there are species which show no signs of aging and manage healthy, active lives right up to the days before death. The challenge that we face is then to concentrate on health span rather than lifespan. More money needs to be diverted from increasing longevity to tackling the most common diseases of old age. But on its own, that's not enough. Another challenge is changing our attitudes towards old age. Although the European Union is at last raising the pension age so that both women and men need to work longer before they get an income from the state, employers need to hire more older people. The idea that one is too old to get a new job at 50 must go. This was not always the case. At the beginning of the 20th century, men worked as long as they were healthy enough to do so and died a year or two later. But when the state began to pay pensions, of course, with the best of intentions, old age had a natural starting point. Nowadays, retiring early is a sign of wealth. It shows that one has been professionally and financially successful. As middle-class jobs grew in number in the 1970s, 80s and 90s, the standard retirement age dropped, so that many managers, teachers and accountants gave up work in their 50s, just at the same time as they could expect to live to their late 70s and 80s. This has now become an extremely expensive burden on the state, not only because of pensions, but also due to the loss of skilled people so early from the workforce. And of course, very few people have enough money saved to finance 2 or 3 decades of retirement. Only a very small proportion of the population has the savings to travel, take up hobbies, buy new cars, and all the other things they got used to while they were working. At least not for 20 or 30 years with no salary coming in. So while it's true that scientists have done a great job of prolonging life, we need to think more about how we're going to make those extra years worth having.